So we are 50 days out. This is the first top 10 mock draft. We'll call it 1.0.
Okay.
And we'll check in every so often, and I'll give you
So it's official.
Yeah, this is official. Obviously, this could end up being way wrong. I don't even know if I need to say this, but I will, just because people can be stupid. So this could be way off. I reserve the right to change my mind if you're presented with new information. And I actually think there are a couple things here that I could be wrong about even right now. I don't feel like super confident in some of this stuff. So what I will do is I will present, if I'm wrong, here's how I think I'm going to be wrong. And that's how this is going to go. I actually think the top three, Ken, maybe like the draft actually starts at 4. The sense that I get right now is that picks 1 through 3, we can bring the music down. We don't need the music anymore. I liked it.
It was good. I liked it.
It was great.
Yeah,
it was awesome. I think we're going to go QB to start. And I think Chicago will keep the first overall pick and select Caleb Williams or their quarterback of choice. Everything I have heard is that, and what everyone has heard, is that quarterback will be Caleb Williams. Mike Brown has put up on our board the market at BetMGM for the first overall pick. Caleb Williams is a massive favorite, minus 1,200. Drake May is the second choice, plus 1,100. Jaden Daniels is plus 1,600. So Caleb Williams, I think, will be the first overall pick of the draft to the Chicago Bears. And like Eric said this in the last segment, like, I can think it's really stupid for the Bears to keep Justin Fields, which is not like, it doesn't have to be a commentary on Fields, but like the Bears might decide to do that, despite what me and what a million other people might think. So it doesn't have to go like this. I just think it makes way too much sense for it to not go like this. So the first overall pick in the Nick Kostos mock draft V1.0, the Chicago Bears select USC quarterback Caleb Williams. So the Washington Commanders, Ken, on the clock with the second overall pick, based off quotes both from Dan Quinn and from offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, and from what I can glean about Jaden Daniels. And I want to give a shout out to Todd McShay, who tweeted something recently, and I have heard the same thing, which is that with the top 3 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May, that it's less like May and Daniels are in a second tier and Caleb's in the top tier. It's more like Caleb Williams is 1A, Jaden Daniels is 1B, and then Drake May is in the second tier. So again, like, we could get information next week that's like Drake May's the no-brainer second pick. Like, that could happen. Just that right now, I feel with McShay saying that, which I've heard the same thing, and also what Washington's brain trust has said, like the new head coach and the new offensive coordinator, I think Jaden Daniels is the guy that makes more sense on like what this offensive scheme is going to be. So with the second overall pick, I have the Washington Commanders selecting Jaden Daniels, LSU, the Heisman Trophy winner. LSU's Jaden Daniels, plus 110 Daniels is, or plus 120 is what Mike has on the screen. Jaden Daniels is to be the second overall pick. With the third overall pick, and then we can stop and Ken, you and I can talk about it from there, the New England Patriots will be on the clock. I know that there are some mock drafters out there that have the Patriots going with Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, and then maybe waiting on a quarterback. Maybe they trade for Justin Fields, do something in free agency. Just the way that Robert Kraft like parsed through this when he sent like his email out to Patriots season ticket holders, like the way he described this draft, and I guess like he could just be doing this to kind of just raise excitement around the team after a terrible season, parting ways with the great Bill Belichick, but called this the most exciting NFL draft in like a really long time for the Patriots. And that's true, because the Patriots have been amazing for a really long time and haven't had to pick at the top of an NFL draft. And now get the opportunity to do that here in the top 3. I can't see right now, with right now being the operative words in that sentence, right now I can't see the Patriots going anywhere but quarterback. And I know that J.J. McCarthy is starting to gain a lot of buzz right now, and maybe McCarthy actually becomes the third quarterback off the board and not Drake May. But for right now, Ken, I'll have North Carolina's Drake May being the third overall pick to the New England Patriots, and May to go third overall, plus 160 at our show sponsor, BetMGM.
You're not going totally chalk there, but you're not taking something that's like crazily priced right now, right? Like Caleb is a big favorite to go number 1. The second overall pick market is sort of shaped like a two-way between Jaden Daniels and Drake May in terms of like it's one or the other, and other players are not considered relevant. Like the next longest price is like 18, 20, 25 to 1, depending on, and like Caleb Williams is the third choice in that market, which is, again, I guess the thought is like, well, if Chicago does something crazy and keeps Fields, then actually Caleb would go second, whatever. like a lot of things could happen, I guess. I think it would be more likely that like McCarthy would go second than Caleb Williams would, but whatever. And then in the third overall pick market, like again, Daniels and May are the two lowest priced players. You're taking one of them. So I guess like if that's how you see it playing out, it doesn't sound like there's a bet to make because you and the market seem to kind of be sharing the same opinion, right? Which isn't even bad right now. Could be right, honestly. And maybe it means don't waste money if that's how we think this is headed. Of the three picks, I'm going to guess, like I'm going to ask a question. I think I know the answer, but of the three picks, like, is number 3 the one that you're the least confident in? Like that you could see going in a lot of different ways, the Patriots, as opposed to Caleb at 1, I don't think you're going to get shaken on, but of 2 and 3, like how crazy do you think it can get based on what you're hearing right now?
I do. I'm going to give you an answer you're not expecting to this question. Nick and Ken here, right. You better, you bet. First mock draft of #draft season. So Caleb Williams is like talked about as being a generational quarterback prospect. I am not grinding the film. I'm not watching the All-22. I am not here to tell you that Caleb Williams is or is not a generational quarterback prospect. It's not what I do. But what I can tell people is that I talk to a lot of people in the league that kind of like do this for a living. And I'll bring up 2 names, right, that have kind of been, I think the word generational was attached to both of them. And no matter what you think of them as NFL players, as prospects, this is how they were spoken of, right? Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence will be the 2 names that I bring up. And in both of those like draft seasons, there was never really any doubt that Luck and Lawrence were going to be the first pick. And I don't think anyone had like bad things to say about either of them. I'm not saying Caleb Williams, Ken, is not going to be the first overall pick. Just that Williams, I would not say that Caleb Williams is talked about in the same like reverent tones that these other guys are. Like, I think people have some issues with Caleb Williams. Like, does he have an attitude problem? Like, I know this stuff sounds crazy to people, but like Caleb Williams crying after, I don't even remember who they lost to, one of their losses. Like, because Caleb Williams crying
Notre
after that
Dame?
loss and like running and like, I'm not sure if it was Tyler, if you remember, tell us, but like hugging his mom in the stands. I'm not saying I have an issue with this stuff. It was, the Notre Dame loss. Just that, like, I think there are people that have legitimate questions in the league about Caleb Williams. Not that he's going to suck, but that maybe he's not going to be the first overall pick in the draft. People love Jaden Daniels. So, again, this is I think Caleb Williams is going to go first. I just mocked him first. But I think people are viewing Caleb Williams through the same prism that we viewed like some of these other like can't miss, no doubt, no-brainer first overall picks. I don't know that the league views him that way.
It feels like we're really close to a bunch of interesting things happening. Maybe we don't know exactly where the quarterbacks are going to go, but we feel like the answer to that's going to be interesting. What's Pittsburgh going to do? What's Denver going to do? Is Justin Fields going to get traded? Like there's some moving pieces. Kirk Cousins. There's some moving pieces here at the quarterback position. What's something that you've heard involving one of these quarterbacks that you think is really interesting?
Oh, it's a good question. I think that you had the report from Florio that I've certainly heard as well, which is that Kirk Cousins' family is going to move to Atlanta. That would seem, with Raheem Morris, what he said, if we actually had a quarterback this year, I probably wouldn't be the coach. Quarterback last year wouldn't be the coach. I think Mayfield is probably going to go back to Tampa Bay. I think Evans signing back with them signals that. Those two, I think, are the big dominoes to fall. And then from there, you have Justin Fields, of course. I think Fields is far less likely to go to a team like Atlanta than everybody wants to say. I think that there's a lot of, not necessarily beef, but there's a lot of prickliness between how things ended in Georgia between Fields and Kirby Smart, and also just kind of like the, how close Arthur Blank is with some folks in Athens and stuff, that I just don't know. I think Fields is more likely to go to a team like Pittsburgh, maybe Denver, although Denver doesn't have the cash. He would be kind of a perfect, like, cheap alternative. I think he's more likely to go to one of those teams than he would be to go to, like, Atlanta or something like that.
I'm loving Purdue into these like small spread games. I'm just betting them every single game because they don't lose. I know you don't like them, Ken. Is there any part of you, as they keep racking up these wins in impressive fashion, Illinois is a good team, maybe like a Final Four team. I guess they could make the Final Four. I don't think anyone thinks Illinois is winning a national championship, though. Purdue goes to their place, beats them by 6, kind of pulls away at the end of the game in clutch fashion. You given any thought to Purdue, to the Boilermakers here?
Yeah, I mean, two thoughts here. One, and this will be a little shorter. I've said this a couple times, and this is gonna happen sometimes, and I promise, like the viewer or the listener, like I'm not trying to be. Well, I am. I'm trying to be obscure. Like I'm trying to be like not specific. Just because I have a lot of criteria that I use for every sport now. Like I build it every year. I add more to try to predict the champion and try to create like a championship profile. And I have something on Purdue that's like a really strong negative, and I can't tell you what it is because then everyone's going to steal it. I just can't, and it's really good.
That's okay.
But I can't. I just can't talk about it. But I have like in part of the criteria I added in the offseason, I added about 8 to 10 new ones to varying degrees and weight them a little bit. And I got something really strongly negative on Purdue, and that's all I can tell you. And so and it can't change. It's like team composition wise. So I can't be on them, but wouldn't blame anybody else for being on them because they're amazing. They're a 1 seed. They're statistically excellent. They're balanced. They have a great individual player who's like an NBA player based on the mock drafts too. I get it. It's the same reason why I get Tennessee, like with Connect. I totally understand all this stuff. It's just not, I guess the way I can frame it is just not for me. Just the way that I look at like some of the data. The second part though, which can be like an open discussion, there's a little Boston Celtics to this, and there's a little Niners to this, and some of the other sports. Like regular season's only going to tell you so much about this stuff, right? Where it's just great in a big spot. Do you want them or do you want this other team? And depending on the sport, you can plug in a different team. Like in like the Celtics can win all the games they want. In the end, do you want them or you want Jokic? Do you want the Niners or you want Mahomes? You want Purdue or you want UConn? Like if they play, the team with like 4 pros, those guys, the guys who won last year, who actually made a deep tournament run. That's the problem with all this stuff is it's unfair, right? Like if Purdue beat Illinois by 40, I could say the same thing. That seems unfair. Like they played awesome. Like don't they get some credit? And they do, and that like their seed will be really higher. That'll impact their chances of going farther in the tournament. Didn't help last year, but it can help this year. It just until they do it. This is the Celtics. To a certain extent, this will be Shanahan. Like until they do it, you're going to kind of always be like, I would rather, not that they can't, but I think you would say, I would rather bet something else. I'd rather bet a different team. I'd rather bet a team that seems more suited to accomplish this task. So Purdue, look, they're not like the Boston Celtics of college basketball. That's not really what I mean. But this difference that I bring up all the time now, because I just think it's fascinating. When we do hockey, it'll come up too. I don't like the Oilers, for example, to win the Stanley Cup. They're probably one of my least favorite teams to win the Stanley Cup. And we can get into why when we get there. Like this difference between the regular season and the postseason and how each is very different, even though it's the same sport, and that there are big differences, and you can see with how teams perform. We just had a Super Bowl where the Chiefs went off 11-1 at the start of the playoffs, and then by the end of the tournament, everyone was like, "Yeah, it was Mahomes, duh." Well, it was so duh they were 11-1 at the start of the playoffs. If it was so obvious that was going to happen, oh, it's Jokic. Well, the Celtics are 2-1 and the Nuggets are 5. So, duh, Jokic, really? Market not saying that. I wonder if we're going to get the same thing here. It's possible with, Purdue goes off as the second choice. Someone way after them price-wise wins. Oh, yeah, like, of course, it's North Carolina. They made the final a couple years ago. Or, of course, it's Houston. They're a 1 seed every year. But, like, it wasn't obvious at the time. I wonder if we're going to be saying that about Purdue. That doesn't mean they can't go to the title game, go to the Final Four, something. Just as a winner, I would just prefer the other 1 seeds much more.